Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show. I'm thrilled to have with me Louise Coghlan, the author of Granny Nancy, Ireland's oldest lady who lived, loved, and laughed for 107 years. Today, we will dive into her amazing book and discuss her upcoming Cup of Tea tour in the US. We also have Melissa Weedman joining us to talk about how this exciting trip came together and share some of the dates that Louise will be here on Cape Cod. So, Lou, can you start by telling us about Granny Nancy and who she was?
I will indeed, Alan. With my pleasure, I will begin with that part. Yeah, Granny Nancy was a beautiful little lady who lived in a little cottage in a place called Clonard, County Meath. She was born on the 16th of October, 1913, and she left this earth on the 10th of September, 2021. And the bit I always say there is just it's hard for your brain to compute those dates, the 1913 and the 2021. The numbers just don't seem to match up. And I suppose that kind of matches with the life she lived. It was a unique life she lived for 107 years and 326 days. I always mention the days because for Granny, she lived day to day, and every day was a new one and a new opportunity to begin again. And I think that kind of mental attitude to life is what brought her all the way from the start to the end. So yeah, she was Ireland's oldest lady. She was very proud to live in her own home, in the independent woman that she was. And luckily enough, as it would be, she lived and she passed away in that home in her own bed as well. So she was a gift in the sense of her health, of her mind, her body, and her spirit. And I was very fortunate to live with her in those final years, to take care of her and to love her and to laugh with her too.
And so she wasn't just, any old lady to you. She was your grandmother.
She was my grandmother, and grandmother to an awful lot of us in a very big family tree. But yeah, I was the fortunate one that, as life would have it, and I think that's the way to look at this. That moment for me was I was in the right place at the right time to be able to step even closer to her. I moved in with her when she was 105, so she lived independently on her own for 105 years, which in itself is kind of miraculous. But she broke her hip when she was 105 on Christmas Eve, and she was taken to hospital, and within a month she was ready and raring to get back home. They offered her nursing home care, which she didn't want, but she said she'll take it for a month because it was free. It was the only thing she was going to get free, so she took it, and then within a few weeks she was determined to go home. And a lot of people were very adamant that she remained in the nursing home, which is a fair assessment, but she was up and walking around and her mind was as clear as a whistle. So that week she approached me. I called every evening and she just said, I have a question for you, Louise. And I said, no, you don't have any question. I said, come on, I'll be here 12 o'clock on Friday and we're going home. So we got into the car, two wheels around the corner, out we went. And I still can remember us laughing our heads off. She was like, I'm out of here, and home she went. Little did we know she had 3 more years to live at 105. So yeah, look at me, it was a gift in so many ways to me, and very, very lucky to have experienced what I experienced.
And that was, the first broken bone she talked about having, and she was completely healthy her whole life. That's incredible to make it to 105 like that.
Yeah.
Before you have your first incident.
Yeah. And the only thing in that whole scale of life was obviously just the car accident she had in 1989. And it really, she didn't even see it as something she zoned in on. And I suppose that was her mindset. She kept, she left the past in the past. But in just touching on that accident that you had in 1989. So really, you're absolutely right, Alan. From that one accident right all the way through, no broken bones, no nothing. And the accident in 1989 was her going to mass with her husband, and they were turning into, it's a small little village in Ireland. They were pulled to the middle of the road wanting to cross over, and unfortunately for the person coming, it was a young girl. She'd missed her train, she'd borrowed her parents' car, like such a simple thing that any of us could happen to, and she was late. The sun was just at that sharp line and point, which we all have experienced in cars. She didn't see them in the middle of the road, and she struck them straight head on. And from that story, I always lean on that one to remind myself of how Granny kept her faith, in the sense of not blaming other people when bad things happen. Her husband went to a local hospital. He was fine. Bob was fine. It was not major, just to be checked up on. So he was brought to my granny. Actually had a very bad facial injury. And back in 1989, obviously that was a big thing. So she went straight into surgery. She was in surgery for something like 17 hours or something, and unconscious for a number of weeks. But unfortunately, when Bob was in the hospital, and back then things were different, nobody moved him. He was a bigger sized man, and nobody lifted him or took him out of bed, and it got a clot in his leg and it traveled to his heart, and he actually died very quickly. And the sad thing that Granny would have always taken from that was that the funeral was over and everything when she awoke, and that's tell her. And I suppose the one thing for her is what she didn't get to say goodbye to him. But I just always admired Granny so much, because she didn't blame that girl. She always prayed for her and prayed for her family that they would be okay. And even up to most recent times, she would mention her that she was still praying for her, and she hoped that her life turned out the way it should, which she deserved a happy life ahead of her. And I just thought, wow, to lose your best person and not hold it against anyone,
Yeah, and it seems like she had many tragedies throughout her life, and yet it did never change her. She always seemed to keep a positive outlook on everything. I mean, she lost two of her the twins, her daughters, and she seemed to have a lot of kind of tragedy kind of surrounding her, but it never affected her. I guess living 107 years, it's kind of common that you're going to outlive some people.
Yeah, and that was a huge thing, Alan, and like these are the aspects I kind of try to share in my talks, just to remind us all that, like, I always struggled with the idea of losing all my friends, and thinking to myself, how will I cope if I lose my best friends? Like, where do you go to then when you don't have that person? But the great thing about Granny was she just kept getting new friends. So her policy is everyone's an opportunity that comes close to her. She susses them out, sees her kind of person, and then makes new friends. So I suppose if anything was to be shared from that aspect of her life, was you will never be alone once you look up and you reach out, because there's, something like 77 billion people in the world. We've so many good eggs, on every corner if we just look for them.
Yeah, and it sounds like, she always had people over the house, and it was always a full house over there. And it sounds like COVID really kind of changed things for her.
It did.
And you as well.
Yeah, it did, Alan. You're right on the button there, in the sense of her house was like a train station. You wouldn't get a seat. It was just packed, and we were all standing around waiting for someone else to move out. And a lot of the time people would be coming in, you wouldn't even know who they were. There was someone she'd met delivering something like a month before, traveling the roads. And she said, call in again if you're this way. But COVID, changed the whole thing. The front, I still remember me closing the front door and kind of sitting down with her, and all I could hear was the clocks. She had an awful lot of clocks. And I never noticed them before, of course, because the busyness didn't allow for the ticking of the clock to be heard. But in this instance, it was very quiet and things had changed. But again, she was a woman of mindset. So, and she'd been through the wars and, the independence of the state, and having nothing to go and to having things. So her attitude was very much, don't worry, we'll be grand. And I just said to her, well, I think we'll just have a great time, will we? I've never got this much freedom to sit with you. And she said, yeah, let's do that. Let's make this fun. We've only a few weeks of it. And as things may have it, we got longer than that, of course, but we still went with the attitude of having a great time. And that paid off in a million different ways for me and for her.
And I think it was great that she mentioned it as well, that, her wish that during this time, everybody would be able to grow closer together as you two had. And I think that for those of us that were able to kind of shelter together, I think it did make a lot of people grow closer. So one of the ways that you two were able to stay closer was by Zoom and participating in different masses around the world. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, come here. I as I said to you, just the two of you before we started, Zoom is somewhere I'm very at home with, in the sense of Granny was so good with technology, and so good with it in the sense of anything I offered, it was yes. Yes. Will we do this? Yes. So even starting just even before the Zoom masses came into play, it was definitely the Facebook page. So I mentioned setting up this Facebook page. We were doing streams anyway, and she was game all for it. She'd be like, are we going to record a video today, or are we going to talk to everyone live? I'd be like, just that she knew what she was saying was like unbelievable. But so yeah, we set up the Living and Laughing with Lou Facebook page, and from there we kind of set out different things to do with people. Tuesday nights was ice cream night. Friday night was, chats and socials. Bring your tea, or if you want to bring your glass of wine, and we'd chill out together. And then, of course, Mass, as you mentioned, Alan, was a huge thing to Granny. Her faith was huge. And look, COVID and the lockdowns was very, very heavy. I would never deny that. We lost an awful lot of people. An awful lot of people are still suffering and grieving on the back of what we went through. And in many ways, we may be some way out of it, but we still have the scars. But for myself and Granny, we were fortunate enough that we got the opportunity to try new things and to turn something bad into, I suppose, a good opportunity. And the Mass was a huge thing. Granny, I suppose, what she loved about going to Mass virtually, sitting with my laptop and my AirPods, which I always just giggled. She was like, "Can I have the little ones?" I was like, "Yeah." Was the fact that we could go anywhere to Mass at any time, and we did that. We went all across. We set that 32 county tour first, so we went to Mass in every county. And as Granny would say, her favorite part was she could have tea and biscuits at Mass every time. So every Mass we did with tea and biscuits, like the best Mass ever. Tea and biscuits provided while you're at it. And I suppose in her mind, she was traveling as well. And me too. It was giving us a sense of escapism. And the priest would say, "Good morning." And the two of us would say, "Good morning, Father." And as the 32 county tour developed, people invited us personally to their virtual masses. So then they made it a personal mass for us. So it was very much, "Good morning, Granny Nancy. Good morning, Lou. We know you're there." And sure, she loved it. And, international media's got involved that time, BBC, Channel 4, they love this kind of method that was going on in the kitchen with us. And from there we stepped out. After doing the whole tours of Ireland, we went further and we went to London to Mass. We went to New York. We went to the Irish College in Rome. They invited us specially, and that was just magic for Granny. That was. And people give out about technology, and I understand there's aspects, like anything, there's aspects to it that are bad, and then there's aspects that are wonderful. And for us, me and Granny I definitely think we have the same mindset. We're always looking for the good, and if you look for the good, you'll always find it. And definitely, oh my God, we had so much fun going to Mass, and we still do. In the sense of, I know she's gone, but all those parishes still know who I am and who we were, and still reach out to us. And I was in St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York. That was very special for me. I virtually traveled it. I nearly got upset talking to you, but it was a wonderful experience when she was with me. And it's amazing that I'm now following through. I promised the people who reached out to us that time that I would try and find them and thank them personally. And that's what this part of this tour is all about. I started my 32 county before Christmas after the book to reach people, to get out and hug them and thank them for their letters and their parcels and their messages. And thank God I'm able to step that next step to the States to again, I suppose, just offer my thanks and my love and my returned hope for them, for what they gave to me and Granny, and hopefully we might give a bit to them.
Yeah, and so I know your Granny's been sending you all sorts of great signals from heaven and letting you know that she's there and she's safe and with everyone that you love. And we hope that she keeps sending you those great signals all along your trip. And so there's over 20,000 people on Facebook that got to meet you and Granny.
There is, Alan, yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about your interactions with the family and building up, because she couldn't see anybody in person. That and the landline seem to be her biggest ways of communicating, right?
100%. And oh my God, who would ever think, something so bad as COVID could bring something so good as what I have received anyway. For me, it has opened our minds to the virtual, and human connection happens once one human sees another, or one human voice can hear another. And for sure, that's what happened for that Facebook page. Living and Laughing with Lou, that Facebook page was born for me and Granny to kind of just continue having a bit of fun and hoping, it started really small. It only started with 6 and 10 people, and that's all that was there. And I always would say it was the home. So in my mind, people were coming to Granny's door and opening it, and we were letting them in. So I'd be like, come on in, everyone, when we do our streams, sit down, there's a couch, put your feet up. And look, it has grown to a massive number, and like it reaches something like about 300,000 people a month organically. I do nothing with it, only mess and still turn up there. And I say huge thanks to the Facebook family for not leaving me after Granny left. So they stuck with the two of us, and from that, and this is something I would want to encourage, is the virtual community. And I know we're going to speak to Melissa in a second, and that's to do with my London Writers Salon community. And I suppose if I was to take one part of that is good meeting good. There's so much bad news being put on us, and that's all we hear. But there's so much good. There's so many good people. And when good meets good, it lights up like a firework of love and all those good things. And so much more good comes from it, because you find one good person, you always find loads more of them, because all their friends are good too. Like you, Alan, look at the lovely smiley, face on you. It's just, I feel your goodness from here. And I don't need to be sitting in the room with you. And I cannot believe what goodness has come from the virtual Facebook family of Living and Laughing with Lou, and also from London Writers Salon, to the sense of hope and believing in your dream and chasing your dream and putting something out there, and people standing forward to help. First of all and foremost, they've been helping me carry my broken heart. I've grieved all the way through that Facebook family. And also when I was with Granny, there was an awful lot of sacrifice. There was an awful lot of really lonely days. I was on a fold-up bed in the kitchen, and it was really, really heavy sometimes. But when it was heavy, and I know people would say, turn into social media, but actually, social media is not all bad. I always say we have a responsibility ourselves to who's at the keyboard. What's written with the keyboard has nothing to do with the keyboard. It's to do with the person. So I've been fortunate enough that so many good people have come together there, and they've lifted my broken heart. They've carried me all around the country, at home in Ireland, and here they are carrying me across to the States. And if I was to die today, I wouldn't mind, because I'd die smiling, knowing I've lived a good life and I've been fortunate enough to know really good people and to be loved, and hopefully I've loved them in return. So, that's all come from one, move on a social media platform, or two platforms as the case may be. But I guess what I'm saying is humans need humans, and, once we find each other and love each other, Jesus, everything is possible, and everything, is game ball. So I'm very, very lucky.
I think your granny really made a great point about love and kindness is all we need to show each other, and things can always be worked out, was one of the quotes from her. I think it's absolutely true. And I think with social media, it's really just a tool. It's what you make of it. And by putting the good out there, I think it was easier for others to find you and to send you their good as well.
Yeah, I thought, isn't it like the statement you've just used there from Granny? It's so simple. Her mindset and her way of life was so simple. She was a simple woman living a simple life, day to day, eating lots, drinking loads of tea, and sharing, her love out to the world. And I think, in that sense, you can't go wrong with just simply, looking to each other and loving each other,
Absolutely. And I think we try and make things so complicated nowadays, and it really is just, you got to go back to being simple and focus on what matters. And she certainly had that right at the forefront, and kept her going for forever almost.
Yeah. And that's the funny thing, I think none of us thought she was ever going to leave. And neither did she. She was planning her 108th birthday when she was leaving. So she had no intention of going anywhere, only that God took her. Yeah.
And it sounds like she went so peacefully, but in 2021, and so COVID, we were only just starting to come out of it. So it must have been really difficult, and I can certainly see why the Facebook group would be so important. And I saw at the end of the book here, you have so many letters of support from all of Granny's friends, and some of them never even got to meet Granny, but just to reach out to you and say, their words of support. What I really found important was your letter to your Granny afterwards. I thought that was just so powerful. Um, can you tell us a little bit about some of the what your Granny taught you and that maybe we can all learn from?
100%. And it's just funny you referenced the letter, Alan, because during that time we started writing letters to try and connect with people. The letter of hope was something that went really viral here in Ireland and in the States. It kind of brought a lot of people to our page. And it was the traditional idea of just writing a letter, like how simple an idea and how powerful it can be. Sometimes we forget that actually words are wonderful, whether they're vocal or whether they're in a letter format. But I suppose the things I learned from Granny, I suppose, was those ideas of just, I referenced it already, but I don't think I can, for myself, I keep it as close as possible. It's a simple life, a roof over your head, a bed to lie at at the end of the night, your family being okay, your health is your wealth, and a bit of food, bit of money to pay your bills, and away you go. All the rest is just stuff. It's just stuff that'll be there and gone when you're gone as well. And the other thing I've definitely taken from her in a huge way is how to cope. Two things she would always say is, the way we're always worrying about stuff. There's no doubt about it. Who you are. You could have all money in the bank and that person is still worried. You can have very little money in your bank and you're worrying. But two things Granny would always said about worry is, one, the things that you're worrying about most likely won't happen. Okay, so first off, whatever you're worried about, whatever you're tossing the turn and night about, it's not going to happen. So you are burning up your energy. And in some ways, I think that's what kept her mind very clear. Is like she didn't let the worry get in. So she just was like, we'll cope with it. So number one is, the worry, if you're thinking about something now as I talk to you, 99% of the times it won't happen. And the second thing is, if it does happen, most importantly, to hear this from me, is you will be able to cope with it. You will cope with it. You will cope, you will travel through it, and you will come out the other side. And that's why I always used Winnie the Pooh was a huge part of our Facebook family. I would bring him into it a lot because Winnie the Pooh has a statement: you are braver than you believe, you are stronger than you seem, and you are smarter than you think. So I would repeat that daily, maybe 2 or 3 times in the group, to remind people that they have great inner strength and you don't know it's there till you need it. And combining that with people around you who you love. That's a very strong thing I hold. Keep good people around you. Anyone grating your brain or giving you a headache, let them off, open the door, let them flow out the door, because you keep, even if it's just one person, if you had a breakdown on the side of the road and you have a puncture in your tire, how many people do you need to help you? You only need one. You only need one person to step out and say, here, I'll give you a hand with that. That's all you need in life. You only need one person to say, how are you? And to wait for an answer. Because there's too many people out there that say, how are you? And then they go full flight into their own story and they're not given that bit of space. So I think they're the most important things I've learned from Granny, is to try and keep my head free of worry, to realize that I can't control things. I'm here in Boston. There's a snowstorm coming. And, my event today has been postponed till tomorrow. Did I panic? No, I didn't. What was my line? Once everyone is safe, it doesn't matter if it doesn't happen at all. And have I traveled thousands of miles to do this event? Yes. Have I spent loads of money? Yes. Do I mind? No, because all that matters is that everyone's okay. And what you meet is how you cope, and how you cope is a reflection you give to everyone else. If you cope and relax and kind of say, this is what's happening, everyone else feels that. So I think it's very reflective of ourselves, what we bring to the table, because that infects everybody else. So I do think if you bring your best, and I know terrible things happen, people, horrible things happen, people. And I always speak of my father. He died in a terrible way to lung cancer. I couldn't figure out why does a bad thing happen to a good person. That took me years to figure it out. And the only thing I've come up with is they just happen. They just happen. Bad things just happen. And then it's over to us of how we cope and how we move. And I watched Granny, even with that, the car accident and losing her husband. And how did she cope? Well, she just day by day And she, she forgave that person and she moved on. She didn't, there's a great line, don't live in the past, just learn from it. Learn from the past. Don't look too far forward and just try to stay here. That's my own theory on it, because I know so many people live past and all it does is hurt them. It hurts them over and over, and then it hurts other people. So it just gets very complicated. So I try my best. It's definitely something that happened to me, Alan. The day she died, the day she let go of my hand, I felt something really magical happen, and, that sounds way out there, but I felt something pass to me from her, a serenity, a peace. And I definitely feel it. And my, as much grieving and heartbroken, something is traveling with me now. It's her. It has to be her. She had 107 years of experience. So yeah, look, I mean, I hope that might maybe share with people the kind of person she was.
That's great. She sounds like she was such an amazing woman and had such an amazing impact on your life and on so many others as well. And one person that we want to bring in here is Melissa, who also was a member of that online community, and like you mentioned, the London Salon writers group. So Melissa, can you tell us a little bit about how you and Louise met? Online, because you haven't met in person yet, right?
Yeah, we haven't met in person yet, although we feel like old friends. As Louise said, you can really feel someone's energy through the internet, through Zoom. So we're both part of something called the London Writers Salon, which is an online community of about 200 people on any given session from all over the world. It's 4 times a day, 5 days a week. You can drop in to anyone you want. There's people from Australia, UK, Ireland, all over the United States, South America, Canada, you name it, South Africa. It's just incredible. And they have seminars and talks by agents and writers and editors, and you can join it for free or, have different levels of participation. And Louise has been just a tremendous, as you have experienced, Alan, source of positive energy, and as she just called herself, a firework of love. I love that, Louise. Because that's the energy you get from her. And then we're all at different points writing different projects. Some people are playwrights, some are screenplay writers, some are writing memoirs, as I am. Some are poets, some are, prose writers or doing their work, emails, whatever. But Louise has been a major figure in that community. And so we have all been encouraging her to keep going through the entire writing of the book. And she completed it and she self-published it. And now she's here. And I just felt like it was a no-brainer that people here in Falmouth would love her. And so I went over to Lee McGuire's, where I'm a musician myself. I used to play there with my band years ago. And Deb McGuire and Vanessa, who's the manager there, were both like, oh, this sounds great. Let's do it. And I asked a friend of mine who's well known in this community named Donnie Cross, who was a drummer in one of my bands at one point and runs the gallery on Main Street in Falmouth. And Louise, you can tell the next part of this. So he's married to a woman from Ireland, and it just so happened, after I asked him if he would be the MC for the Lee McGuire's event on March 23rd, and he said yes, he said, oh, by the way, I'm going to Ireland next week. And so he and his wife, Fran, actually met Louise, and that was magic. Louise, why don't you talk about
that?
It
was magic. I mean, I don't know. That's where the Granny Nancy magic comes in. And me and Melissa do laugh about the Granny Nancy magic because you couldn't make it up. That's the truth. So I was very fortunate. Melissa, the magic Melissa, it's Melissa magic as well. That's happening in this story. But yeah, Donnie and Fran were home in Ireland, and I fortunately got to go up to Dublin and meet them. And I mean, we thought we'd probably only meet for, half an hour and be social, but sure, like half a day later, we're still together. And look, we were lucky we didn't have to book into the hotel and stay for a few days the rate we were going. Look, it was like old friends. It was like the best of friends. They're such good people. And I knew there'd be such good people because good people find good people. Melissa, Donnie, oh my God, Fran, such good people. Alan, it's one link of the firework, meets the other. So yeah, we had the time of our lives, and I can't wait. Like, I can't wait to hug Melissa and spend quality time in her presence. I can't wait to meet Donnie and Fran once again. And look, that's the magic of life. We just want good people in our lives. The more we can squeeze them in, the better our lives will be.
Absolutely. And I think Granny Nancy would absolutely agree with that as well.
She's also going to speak at Scally's Irish Pub in Yarmouth on Sunday the 19th at 1 p.m. and at O'Shea's in Dennis on Wednesday the 22nd at 4 p.m. and at Liam's on Friday the 23rd at 4:30, and these are all free. You just show up, come on in, look for Louise. You'll see all the smiles and you'll find her.
I sense that Thursday is going to be quite the kick up, because it is the last night of my tour and I'll be returning to Ireland then. So, but I've got this feeling, I don't know, has anybody else got this feeling? There's something magical drawn towards Lee McGuire's, and yeah, look, I'm so grateful to all the venues for hosting me. So grateful to Melissa for taking me under her wing and being such an encourager. We all need encouragers in this world, and we all can be an encourager to each other. And Alan, thanks so much for having me on today as well. So thanks a million to all and above.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. I want to extend a huge thank you to our amazing guests, Louise Coghlan and Melissa Wiedman, for joining us today and sharing their incredible stories and insights. It has been an absolute pleasure to have them on the show. We hope that you, our viewers, have enjoyed today's discussion as much as we have. The book Granny Nancy is available through livingandlaughingwithlou.com. You can also catch Louise on the Cup of Tea tour here in Falmouth at Liam McGuire's on March 23rd. Thanks again for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time.